Morning YouTube. So in this video today, I want to have a chat with you guys about why you should get rid of customers and how to get rid of customers. Now I know that sounds super strange. It's all about keeping customers, it's all about preserving. It is and it isn't. Somebody said to me many years ago that your best customers will eventually become your worst customers. Now that's not meant as Mr. and Mrs. such and such who were lovely customers when you first down will suddenly turn to complete and utter nightmares. What it could be is Mr. and Mrs. such and such, you know, you're first starting out, you tell them you pay, and they'll say, well, I'm looking at paying £15 an hour, but what I can do is I will give you winter work, you know, you'll have a couple hours a week guaranteed, you know, and at the time you'll take it and you'll think, yeah, brilliant. And they probably will end up being your best customers. They're loyal, okay, they pay, but at the time, you know, when you first start your business, you know, a few years ago, probably what you needed. But then as the years go on, you quickly realise that, you know, you try and broach a subject and they aren't budging on the price. No, we can only afford 15, you know, but you know, there is winter work, you know. And then you soon start realising that actually, it's not that they're terrible people, it's just they aren't the customers, you know, for you anymore, and soon become the worst customers, or not good customers, or customers that you should leave behind. I know it sounds horrible, but you've got no way of getting out of it. You can't say to the customer, right, I'll move on from 2 hours at the £15 an hour, but I reckon I can do, you know, the 2 hours work in an hour and 20 minutes. No, we need you for 2 hours, you know. And that's what people like. People like having that you're there for that time, but you know, in majority of cases, you need to be willing to pay for that time. And then that's when you start thinking, and that's when you have to get rid of them. And okay, for them it might be a bitter pill to swallow, and for you, you might think, blooming hell, you know, they've always been dependable. But like I said, you've outgrown the customer. You've moved on from them, and this is, I think, this happens with probably any business, but probably more so with our business, where it is regular work, repeat work. You can keep the same people depending on how you do it and how you price it, but people come and go. Not many, but people come and go. In my business, I have quite a good retention rate, to be fair. The only thing that seems to happen is you do lose people, but I always think to myself, I don't lose good people, I always lose bad people. And when I see other people talk about it on the internet, they always say, oh, I've been dropped by, you know, this bloke, but then they always say, well, he was a late payer and he was always dog shit. So it's always shit people dropping you. You know what I mean? I will get onto it in a bit, because good people can drop you. I'll explain that in a bit. But by and large, the majority of times, they're crap customers to begin with. So don't feel guilty about it. I think if you're going to drop people, I think or get rid of people, as the title suggests, I think there's ways and means of doing it. Number one, it's not personal, or don't make it personal. It should never be. I think if it's up to, I think if a customer decides to take it wrong, then yeah, but then it's dependent on you. I think if you can hold your head up high and say, yep, I tried my best, and they've still took it wrong, that's on them, isn't it? So obviously, if you've booked in a big job and you just don't want it anymore, whatever reason, tell them as soon as you can. Don't just leave it the night before. Same with any customer. If you do regular work for them, if you can, you know, give them as much time as possible, then do that. But if it is that you can't, and you can't do it, and you won't be able to do it, or you don't want to do it, well, you just have to tell them. I try and tell them over the phone. It's a good way and it's a bad way, you know, because you open yourself up to a rollicking. I've heard other gardeners where they've just said, they text them and then they just block them, you know. And I've heard other people, not so much gardeners, but other people just say they just won't go again, you know, and then the customer gets the idea. I've never fancied those two options, if I'm being honest with you. I know the first one of telling them can often end up getting where you can get a little bit of backlash off them, but in a way, if that's what the customer takes, 5 minutes of moaning at you and to get it off a chest, yeah, because you will bump into them again. You will see them, especially if you're in a small town or city. And another thing as well, you don't want to be known as unreliable. If you could tell them, or even if you text them, you know, if you know you've told them or text them, whatever, then that's it, sorted. But if it is that you don't, then that customer's going to be telling everybody and sundry, well, my last garden didn't turn up. Just never bothered coming back. And, you know, you don't really want to be known for that. Just take the hit. So I think this time of the year is when probably majority of gardeners would start thinking about, you know, who to keep and who to drop. Now, in my head, I hear other people where they say, oh, I'll be dropping a few people at the start of the season. Now, my advice to you is, if they're that bad, get rid of them as soon as. You know, if you've got someone, they're either a nice person with a horrible garden and it's killing you, or they're a horrible person with a nice garden and you just don't want to be around them, you don't like them, you don't want to be around a garden, you don't want to do it anymore, then why prolong it to the other season? Just tell them there and then, you know, after the visit. Again, do whatever you think's best. If you know no matter how you do it, they're going to have a moan at you, well, get it over and done with. If you can, you know, stick by and give them, you know, a couple of weeks notice, do it. But it's, you know, it's ultimately, it's up to you. I had it about 3 years ago. I think I've said this story before, and this is what I'm saying about, don't make it personal. Nothing's personal, but at the same time, don't be tempted to cut people slack, because sometimes it can work, sometimes it doesn't. So a couple of years ago, I did this job. I did 2 people on one road and the parking was terrible. So I used to park on this bloke's, well, I used to park in front of his garage because he was at the end of the terrace houses. So I had to drive all the way down and reverse all the way back. And I used to do his garden and throw stuff over the fence. Well, not literally, obviously I have to wheel the mower all the way around, but parking, it wasn't an ideal job for both of them. For him it was fine, but for the other lady it wasn't, but we made do. And then it was during COVID actually, or the end of COVID, so pretty much when I started, you know, with my business properly, I had a phone call off a chap, and I think it was the end of the second lockdown or whatever, and he says, Luke, he says, it's nothing personal, but my missus is going to take the lawn on instead, because she's shielding, and God, this last she had to shield for so long. She's shielding at the moment, and basically she's going to do it, so we don't need you. I was like, yeah, that's fair enough, and that's the right way of going about things. But that meant that the garden that I already didn't enjoy, if I was to go there, I would have to basically have to park up. And it'd be a bloody nightmare. It really would. Get a bit warm in here. So it really would. It would be a nightmare. So I made the decision to basically, as I said, didn't like the person, didn't like the garden, didn't like the work, and the parking was terrible now, because I couldn't really park at that bloke's house. It would have been a bit cheeky. So I thought, right, she's a little old lady. What I'll do is again, this is me probably going overboard, but I thought, I knew she wasn't going to be happy, but I thought I'll do my best, and maybe she won't be less happy. And you shouldn't think like that. If people choose to take it wrong, then it's on them, isn't it? So I said to her that, just letting you know, I've done all the work, I've done a little bit extra, but I'm not going to charge you for today. Oh, why? I says, well, I won't be able to carry on servicing your garden after today. So what I've done is I've got you a couple of numbers for some other gardeners that I know. And she goes, what a horrible trick you've done on me, you bastard. Fucking swearing at me, kicking off. This was like an 80-year-old lady. And I thought to myself, you know what? Since then, I wouldn't make that mistake again. You just tell people. And she, you know, she just went completely over the top. Proper lost her shit. And I just walked away. But I could walk away going, I held my head up and I did the right thing in my head. I think if I would have just said, right, you know, 20 quid where it was, 30 quid, and then, oh, by the way, I'm not coming again, then I would have got that bollocking, and I probably would have felt a bit guilty. But I did it in a way that I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel guilty. It annoyed me, but I didn't feel any guilt. So, like I said, you're not going to please everybody. I think the biggest thing, what everybody hates, whether it's you, me, anybody, they hate being told no. and a gardener saying they don't want to do the work anymore, well, that could be quite triggering for some people. You know, I've had it before where I've cancelled on somebody, and it was like a child. She says, "Well, you're a shit gardener anyway." I'm like, okay. I said, if you think that, I'm sorry, and it happens. It really does. As I said, don't make it personal. Don't burn your bridges as well. Now, I'm not saying, like I said at the start with that story with that nice couple that only wanted to pay £15, don't burn your bridges. It's up to you what you tell them. Sometimes I think honesty is the best policy. Just letting you know, I won't be able to service your property anymore. My routes got a bit tighter, so I'm, staying closer to base. Also, with me upgrading my kit and my practices, whatever, I'm also able to operate quicker, so I no longer work on an hourly structure. And I also, can comedy a higher hourly price than what you're paying. And that's it. That's up to them, isn't it? You never know. They might say, well, actually, we'll have a think about it, see what we can do. Some people won't. Some people, everything's on price. And that's first story I told you. That's happened to me. I've worked for people where they've told me their limit will always be this much. And, well, it's up to me. Sometimes I'll take it. Sometimes I won't. But, as I said, you don't feel... I heard another gardener talk about this, and I've had it myself. I think it was Mr. Cheese, the gardener. He was talking about where he did a quote, and basically the old bloke was dictating terms and conditions. Now, I think when you first start, you're open to accepting that. I know when I first started, I probably would have been, yeah, no problem, done that. But when you get further into your journey, you don't. Now, when you first start, you're not picky. You'll take pretty much whatever. But as you go on, it might take you a month to get to this point. You never know. A year, 2 years, 3 years. But now you can get where you can pick your work. And that's what I do, if I'm being honest. And it's not, showing off or anything. And I'll tell other professionals, I would never dream of telling a customer that, or, somebody who doesn't understand how business works. But I can pick and choose my work. If I go to a job and it feels sketchy, something doesn't feel right with it, and I won't do that work. It's as simple as that. If I don't like the look of the person. Now, I'm not judgmental. I don't care what people live in, what situations they are, but you know what I mean. You'll go to somebody and there's just something that's not right. Your spidey sense, you can feel it in your waters, whatever. Something's telling you, stay away, Sam, stay away. And I will. I'll listen to myself and I'll walk away. I always think nothing ventured, nothing gained. I've gone there, with no work beforehand, off this person. If I don't get any work off this person because she's, a nut job or he's a nut job, then I will walk away from it. So always think about it like that, guys. I know it sounds horrible, but now's the time. But then again, there's never a right time. There's never a wrong time. Don't put up working with shitty people this year. This is something that I said to myself as one of my goals. Don't pay the mental tax. Don't put up with, if you're carrying people over from next year that you looked at your diary, and so I do a month diary normally, and I had people, and I got rid of about 6 people last year. I remember looking at it and going, bloody hell, I've got to go to such and such. I've got to go to such and such. I had one job, and I'll tell you about it before I go. And this was one that I got rid of. So if you didn't watch previous videos, I've got hernias and I've got a colostomy bag. And the two of them just don't get on at all. So it causes me a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. And one of the things that triggers it is bending down and being on my hands and knees doing stuff. Now, I'm fine. If I drop my secateurs, I can pick them up. If I have to put in 20 bulbs, I can probably do that, no problem. But if I have to put 100 or I'm down on my hands and knees for hours on time, then that's what causes me problems. I've learned this. I've learned it the hard way, so I don't bloody do it anymore. And I had one job, and I'll tell you, the most soul-destroying job I ever had. And she used to be a good customer. She used to be really good. This is how you think in your head. You used to think she was good. But when I look at it now, I wasn't. You were just somebody that was at somebody else's beck and call. So did, work. And she used to do winter work, bits and stuff. But she always had this thing with payment. She thought every single job was a £20 job. And you know, trying to say no, it's going to be. And what I did beforehand was I'd just give her a price beforehand. If she'd tell me, I said it was going to be this much. And you know, sometimes it was £20, sometimes it was more, sometimes, well, it was never less. But you get what I mean. And the last job I did for her, I had all these problems, and I'd been putting it off, you know, a bit sort of not cowardly, but you know, trying to keep everybody happy as I try and do. And it was summer, you know, hot as fuck, like Mordor, and it was me, fat ass on the floor, picking all the weeds out of the patio because that's how she liked it. Her husband insisted on feeding the birds, so you know, even trying to sort of educate, get it something different. No, it wasn't going to happen. And got all the patio weeded, all that. Looked quite good actually. And she just paid me, and the bloke, he opened the kitchen window up and he had a plate full of birdseed and just dashed it all across the patio. And you could see it bouncing all into the gravel. I thought to myself, you know what, fucking bollocks to this. You know, that's it. That wasn't the tipping point. I'd already made my mind up, but it was that. I thought, right. So I dropped him. And I dropped quite a few people. And I'll be honest with you, never, after the first time I did it, there was no regret. None whatsoever. So think about it like that, guys. Have a good day. Keep on gardening.